Hey everybody, welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm your host Robert Durden, and this episode is going back to what I've been talking about for the last couple of days after being distracted by Marjorie Taylor Greene all day yesterday, as I think most of us were. So let's get back to talking about actual things, Israel and Palestine. Israel is continuing their apartheid state and their ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and a couple of things have happened since the last time I talked to you, particularly what happened this morning. And I'm going to read to you from Common Dreams here. The Israelis bombed an 11-story building that was home to the Associated Press and Al Jazeera and other media outlets. So this was like a building with a whole bunch of journalists in it, and among other things, it had residencies as well, like just normal Palestinian residences. And they gave them 1 hour to vacate, and then they just blew it up. As far as I know, I have not seen any evidence that there was any Hamas in the building, so I'm not sure why or what story they're trying to spin as to why they did it, but it seems to me pretty obvious as to the actual reason, and I'll get to that. And then we're going to talk about something else that Netanyahu said and the Minister of Defense said that is extremely ominous. So let's read to you from Common Dreams here. Live Al Jazeera video showed the 11-story al-Jalaa building, which also houses a number of residences and other offices, crashing to the ground after being bombed as dust and debris flew into the air. The strike came just hours after another Israeli bombing of a densely populated refugee camp in Gaza City killed at least 8 Palestinian children and 2 women from an extended family in the deadliest single airstrike of Israel's current assault. Associated Press President and CEO Gary Pruitt has released the following statement, quote, "We are shocked and horrified that the Israeli military would target and destroy the building housing AP's bureau and other news organizations in Gaza. They have long known the location of our bureau, and new journalists were there. We received a warning that the building would be hit. We are seeking information from the Israeli government and are engaged with the U.S. State Department to try and learn more. This is an incredibly disturbing development. We narrowly avoided a terrible loss of life. A dozen AP journalists and freelancers were inside the building, and thankfully they were able to evacuate in time. The world will know less about what is happening in Gaza because of what happened today." That last sentence is the key, and that is why they bombed the building. I don't think that they've even tried to weave a narrative that there were terrorists there from Hamas. They just bombed the building. But why? It scares me because they're taking out media outlets. That's what you do when you're about to do something even more horrible than what they're doing right now. And that brings me to the second point here. I'm going to bring up a different article talking about the Israeli defense minister and his quote, and Benjamin Netanyahu. And these articles came out on the same day, if I remember correctly. So the Israeli defense prime minister, or whatever, his name is Benny Gantz. He was the guy that was in there during 2014 Gaza debacle that they had there, where they were just killing Palestinians left and right, a whole bunch of bombings. I want to read to you what he said here. Quote, "Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz threatened that, quote, Gaza will burn, as Israel's military reportedly readied plans Thursday for a possible ground invasion of the occupied Palestinian territory, a major escalation, and the human rights advocates warned that would lead to more destruction and civilian deaths. In remarks dubbed as a message to the people of Gaza, Gantz, who served as Chief General Staff for the IDF, that's Israeli Defense, that's their military, during Israel's deadly 2014 invasion of the Gaza Strip, claimed that, quote, Hamas leaders bear the responsibility for your being hunkered down in your homes, end quote, amid Israeli airstrikes. If citizens of Israel have to sleep in shelters due to Hamas rocket attacks, Gantz said late Wednesday, then Gaza will burn, end quote. So this scares me, and it scares me particularly because now we know that they have bombed that building with all the journalists in it, a media center. That tells me that they're looking to do some sort of media blackout for something absolutely atrocious that they're going to do pretty soon. That is a horrifying notion, and these two articles, coming out back to back, and this quote from Benny Gantz right around the time they're taking out these institutions that would be there to cover them and hold them to account and follow up what they're doing to the Palestinians. This is not a good sign, guys. This is not good. So what can we do? We have to be hyper vigilant here. All journalists that actually give a shit about human rights have to hold the Israeli government to account. We have to document all of this as much as we can, and I will do my best on this show, and I know there are some other people that are like me who are going to do their darndest to keep you guys up to date on exactly what's happening. But long story short, Israel is looking for a reason to occupy further areas in Palestine, and they're going to use force whenever they want to. And they're not just looking for a reason, guys. They're manufacturing a reason. Okay? They spin the narrative that they're going after Hamas, but what they don't tell you is that Hamas, the last attack that they just did, I think it was on Monday, was provoked by the Israelis when they went in and shot up that church with all those rubber bullets and tear gas and flashbangs. And so they go in and they poke the Palestinians. Hamas reacts when they go in and attack people that are praying peacefully, and they also killed a bunch of children, by the way. Now, this happened a little bit afterwards, but they have in the past killed numerous children. So Hamas retaliated, and then Israelis bombed Palestine and killed over 20 people, including 9 children. And then, as you've heard in this most recent article, they bombed a refugee camp and killed 8 more children since then. So what they're doing is they're going and poking Israel. They're going and, instigating a fight with Hamas, and then when Hamas shoots back at them, then they go and bomb Palestine and use that as the reason for doing so. So I'm not advocating for anything that Hamas does, obviously. They're a terrorist organization, but obviously the Israeli defense, their military, is also doing terrorism, and in fact, they are the provocateurs. That is the actual narrative, but they're spinning it. American media outlets are also spinning it somehow as it's some sort of war, that there's, Hamas terrorists are wreaking havoc everywhere and the Israelis have to step in. Nonsense. Palestine does not have a standing army. Israel has all of the money in the world that we give them, by the way, all the weapons in the world, a standing army, all of this tech. They are committing what's essentially genocide and an ethnic cleansing there. And nobody, other than independent media in the United States especially, is going with that narrative. They all spin it as though the Palestinians and the Israelis are at war, and we're just backing up our allies, the Israelis, as if they're not committing genocide. They are. This is the true narrative that I'm giving you here, and I'll post the links below to these 2 articles. Highly recommend you read them, but we need to stay hyper vigilant, guys. It's going to get bad. And I would look, they might do more than just this in terms of bombing media sources, which really scares me, but we have to keep our eyes peeled and make sure that we're documenting this. I mean, I forget who it was, but they said in here, I think his name was Ali Abunimah. He is a writer. He said Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz's public statements, like Gaza will burn, that should be evidence basically given to the UN, like basically straight up testimony that they are premeditating war crimes, right? This shows premeditation of war crimes, which blowing up that building, that 11-story building we're talking about, the al-Jalaa building, that's a war crime. That is not a military installation. It's civilians, and it's journalists. So this shows premeditation of war crimes, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, especially since the United States is essentially turning a blind eye to it and acting like it's just, out of our hands, and like we can't do things like BDS or completely stop giving money to Israel, which is what we should do. That's what Biden should do. That's what I would do if I were president, is no more money to Israel, bring them to the table, and BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction, and we will get this under control. But I don't think Biden's going to do that, so things are going to get worse before they get better. So let's keep our eyes peeled and be hyper vigilant here, guys. We're watching something atrocious unfold in front of our eyes. We should not turn away. So keep fighting the good fight out there. I'll have at least 1 or 2 more episodes for you guys today. We'll see you.